Islam. That's the second part of beware of more haters and definitely killers. OdiarMoros and MataMoros, and this one is dedicated to the Moorish science temples of America, which is in metaphysics, the Moorish American woman, and the science that they retain, they give to the children or their sons. So, in this one, we're gonna dig more into Ghana, what that means, and who was that in the empire, how far it stretched, and basically, just as we always been going through, how it pertains to us in the Americas. Outside of the normal aspect that we all know that they omit is the fact that we highly related to the Moors out in West Africa today, or what we call West Africa, Ghana, and and Northwest Africa, right? Mauritania, Algeria, So we're gonna keep showing how that empire stretched really the whole planet, but we're gonna focus on the basics, right? So we're gonna find out who was these Ghanaians kings. And again, it's the second time it's showing us, third in a row. The titles held by the kings of this continent. And as we can see from the Moors, they use the term kings, they use the term Ghanea. So the kings of Ghanea, the mighty kings of Ghanea, humble in their blessing pole to pole, which is Alaska to Chile. So, right here, we can see the Portugal, which we're going to see Portugal, that record is really accessible of their titles in the church, right? But the Moorish ones like Kidam and Shekwe and Muhara, LK, their records, we might have to use the Arabic and find those records using terms like the kings of Ghana or Ghanea and stuff like that, with their kingdoms of Ghanea, Gago, Tumalatar, provinces of Ha, Tequila, Tamiza. So, with the Portuguese, though, we see how the king of Portugal was from there and beyond the sea in Africa. We already know from the last video, beyond the sea in Africa is a phrase used for this place before we get the idea of having names for continents. So in the records, it shows up as Alinmar in Africa. But at those times, the records showed that Portugal is talking about a square that they got on the tip coast of South America. And the records show that they got that, but they only act as if they've been calling it Brazil the whole time, which we know is not true from these records right here. And they was also known as the Guinea, which I believe is just a term used for this family, the Ghanea family, who've been known for having a lot of riches and gold and jewelry. And most of these Moors had that. And we can see not just Guinea, but even calling it from the conquest and navigation and the commerce of Ethiopia, Arabia, and that's supposed to be Persia and India, and all these places is different parts of South America and North America at this time. And the Algarves, that's another important point to make sure, because the Algarve is in Portugal and another Algarve in what we call Morocco today, which automatically separate the term Morocco from that place in this time, at least in the Portuguese eyes. So they call it Algarve, that part. And the two Algarves were on both sides of the strait, one in Portugal and one in Morocco. And they end up being the rulers of the two Algarves. So we got, the rest of it, Carlos the Fifth and 1/3, and we know the Prince of Brazil. That's when they start using that term for the area. And the Catholic kings, they got the same ideas. They got the Indies and the Canary Islands. The Canary Islands they talk about, we know, as parts of America. Also, today, got 4 or 5 little small islands that, if we look at the history of the Canary Walls, we can see that they would have sank those islands, all those walls, in between the different Moors and Christians that allegedly happened in the Canary Islands. According to the stories of the Canary Walls, we know that it didn't happen on those islands because we don't see the destruction. Right? We see cities, we see buildings and stuff. We don't see no signs of these wars, but we do see it in Colombia, Venezuela, and Peru, and Mexico and all that. And that's who Canary Islands, the Indies, which is the islands, and their possessions in Africa. Africa being, that's what it's being called at this time, and Tierra Firme, which is, we know, firm land, that Columbus or whatever, that's basically like Venezuela and Colombia and all that. It's just different people calling the same places different things, but the same land, right? So somebody else mapped 2 maps in the same time period from different groups of people with totally different names. We gotta understand that as a map is nothing but lines on a paper with words on it. It's not natural in nature. Places don't name itself. That's just goes without saying. It just retarded even to explain that to people. But that's what it is. The only real name of a place is North Latitude, this, and South Latitude, whatever, longitude. That's the true name. Place. So everything is titles, like we see. And Felipe II, Segunda, hers was, as we can see, he on Peru, as on a Peruvian king's list. So we know he talking about the Americas in his titles. And he again of the Canary Islands, because he is Catholicas, the Catholics, the East and the West Indies, because he already now started dealing with the Philippines, which under his name Felipe, that's where they get it from, Philippines. They, he the father of that, but they already been under the Moorish Empire, just like the West, this part. So they today, even some of them still say Moros because they remember that, just like on this side. So he dealing with the East and West Indies. So India also, he dealing with that too. That's what the East and West India companies and all that stuff to come out. The Dutch start following these Spaniards and terra firma in the ocean sea, off the ocean sea. So let's check this out now. Like I said, the Christian versions of this history easier to find than Amule, Mohara, LK, and all their records. So check this out. So in the Spanish text, we got Don Felipe. On the grace of God, the King of Portugal, and of the Algarbes, of the waters, and of the beyond the sea in Africa. Same thing that she just finished saying that I translated in this right here. You know, that's Minna's title. And you know this word LNCWM show up in all the records, which is beyond the sea. There's other terms like Algarbes that they use for across the straits. So that's something different. LNCWM in Africa. But you know, we don't got no time machine, and we can go back and ask them if that means America. So you know, all we can do just use evidence. So the preponderance of the evidence will, you know, make the claim. So they got the Senor de Guinea. So you know, they're using that Guinea. Of the Conquista, the conquest, and the navigation, and the commerce of Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia, and India. You see? So they break down his title when they talk about him, and that's how they've been done back then. So we can look at the titles and see what it's called. The places that we know they had conquests and navigations to. So you know. You see that word maestros that come from the word MR2 in the ancient times come down as a maestro, just like Moor. And let's continue. Okay, let's get into this text right here from Clyde Winters, Dr. Clyde Winters, the scholar and anthropology, history, language, a lot of good stuff. So, you know, get his books. And let's say on this tablet, you know, found in South America on this tablet with the sun figure, which probably represents Zat Badin, or the Ethiopian sun god. So, you know, Ethiopia is on both sides of the Atlantic. Basically, you're talking about the people on both sides of the Atlantic, which I believe is utopia. Is another word that just means like the garden. The people of the sun are, you know, the people in paradise. Utopia. So you got the sun god and the elephant. We find references to three things: the harp, the mead, and the bread. These three things are associated in Tigray with the man who is about to make a journey or go to work in the field, reading the tablet from top to bottom. And right to left, we find the following translations: Zapidin Iwal, Big Begin Zabark Tabet. So as we can see, they're using the consonantal Canaanite form of consonants, the Phoenician consonantal language, whatever. So then in this tablet, we got the moving from the top to bottom of the Cuenca tablet to the bottom. We read Bo, Gabete, to damage, and it got elephant, Yahit, to make clear, and Ibex, Nazate, to confess one's sins. This tablet probably refers to the warrior creed which may have existed among the Mohica or Huari that once ruled this area. It uses spectrograms to denote the role of the soldier, because the Ethiopians in Ecuador, Peru, which we know we still in quote unquote Africa, from 20 degrees north latitude and south from the equator is Africa going around the planet. So I found out, well, I should have found that map. I should have bring it to this way, but instead of calling it Africa, they call it on that one Peruvia. So they still using one of the terms within that zone to represent the whole zone. So we got because the Ethiopians in Ecuador, Peru were constantly at war with local Indians. This tablet refers to warfare and probably can be interpreted as follows. In war, it is the bow, Guma, of short horns because of his ferocity, that causes damage to the enemy, and the elephant, Iwal, that will make the outcome clear. And it is to the Ibex system, symbol of the moon. Um, I don't even think that's connected to this right here. Nation, yeah. All right, I must finish reading the whole thing. Moon God, that we must confess our sins for deliverance. The presence of these tablets in Ecuador and the depiction of sin carved out of it. So we're gonna probably get into a little what sin. It's gonna keep showing up. That's an old city. They say rock and mention of the god and Moke tradition all points to the Ethiopian presence in Ecuador and Peru. In Ethiopia, we know we're dealing with the ancient biblical aspect of that too. So-called cushion, you know, what else? Punt, all those alleged places allegedly Ethiopia. So we got, in summary, Africans from East Africa probably settled parts of South America. These Africans of the early Moke period may have come from modern Ethiopia, Somalia, which served as a major staging area for Meroitic, and Aksumite natives that trade goods to nations in the Indian and Pacific Ocean. So it goes to show like the climatal map, like it show all these people being considered in that zone the same people going back to ancient times, because that the dredging of the river, they already not set up systems since ancient times. We'll get into that too. So it's not shocking that he finds so much connections. Not shocking to me. And let's continue. Say this is supported by the discovery of African skeletal remains in Ecuador and Peru. Although blacks came to South America from East Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific, blacks from accent probably greatly influenced the rise of elaborate monuments and made entirely out of stone in Peru and Ecuador, and introduced certain important types of looms and medical techniques. They also played an important role in the rise of the Mohica Empire. So go look up the Mohica Empire. I think I talk a little bit on them in some of my videos. South America, they got dynasty, so you can go on Wikipedia and see a king's list and shit like that. So they got chapter 7, and in this text he got the Malians in America. So that's what I want to get to. He said the Northern Mande speaking people founded the earliest civilization in North and West Africa. In addition to founding the Dar Tichet settlements between 1000 BC and AD 1500. The Northern Mande founded the empires of Ghana and Mali. So we should know the stories about those kingdoms. So scholars agree that during the Mali Empire, an expedition from Mali led by Massa King Abu Bakari discovered the Americas. So we all should know that story. Many sources to that. And they say many African tribal groups were established in America when the European began to settle the New World. So what a lot of that information coming from is the old texts of the Spanish and Portuguese that talk about Africans and Ethiopians and when they've been coming here and dealing with that. But we don't get is we don't get that they just been calling that zone that from these maps, these zone maps that they've been finding out in the navigation schools teaching. These zonal maps been changed to the continental maps that we got now, where every continent got your own name. But Zone 1 been known as Holy Lands, and Zone 2 been known as, um, no, Zone 1 been known as Tundra, Zone 2, Asia, Zone 3, um, Holy Lands or Morocco, and Zone 4, we got Africa or Paradise or whatever, Sunny Land. We got um, rainforests, and we got the Congo, we got an Amazon right there. So those two areas, no matter which one they in, it could have been listed as Congo or Amazon in those times, because these words mean something other than just the name of a place. Places became names, but people were just gonna call them places probably based off the environment, how it look, and a lot of the times with the Portuguese and the Spanish, how the people look. If dark skin, that's Africa, stuff like that. And let's continue. I want to get to Ghana, really. So it is documented that Columbus learned about America from travels along the West Africa coast. Um, we're gonna deal with that in this one, I think, or the next one. That this Columbus, um, he already know about how, all these different places over here and in West Africa. They already know about all that. So he really learned about America. He been, matter of fact, quick, like he been ordered by Isabel not to do nothing or deal with or even go to Guinea, which at that time would be the Portuguese squares in Brazil. And Vasco da Gama is said to have found out information concerning the West Indies, so they could have been in Brazil learning about the islands north of Brazil, the West Indies. Now, from South America, which they had know about. The Europeans knew about the Americas due to their contacts with West Africans, but what we don't know is how far west this Ghana Empire really, but at this time already been at. If you go to my video dealing with the kings of Amexem, you'll see how these records showing these kings been kings of both sides, these Ghanaians. These Africans helped them discover the Americas. So they figure all this part out, these scholars. And they missing the part that they call them Africans because they're looking at it from a point of view that these people were on this side, and they talking to other people saying, hey, your whole continent on the other side of that ocean. And really in that, that's the mind state thinking as of we believe in the discovery from Columbus. That mentality making us a mistake. They've been already ready to take conquests since 1393 over here. They've been ready to start conquests in different parts. So it wasn't really looked at as what we look at today, Ghana on that side and South America on this side. That been just Africa all the way. It didn't matter what side. That the waters in between, what we call the Gulf of Ghana, is what the Moors used to play in, as if that been just going across the street. So looking at it like that, that's one big home to a Moor. Not like, but in political terms today, when you say stuff like these Africans helped them discover the Americas, is a way of thinking that we using is separation in our heads. Because politically today, only that place over there is called Africa, and them people allegedly Africans. So if I using the term Africans and I'm talking about people in Brazil, it causes confusion to people here because they think I'm talking about the modern day aspect of that. Man, I talking about according to a certain document, they're dealing with that in that fashion. So Anyway, the Africans helped them discover America. Balboa found numerous African communities in Central America and Mexico. Gumila also found their presence in the shores of the Orinoco rivers, the oil kingdom of Morocco and all that. Rivers of Venezuela. At the commencement of the 16th century, the largest settlement of blacks had moved from Brazil to Darien, Panama, according to the Amerindian traditions. But the Amerindian and all that, these people all these people here, and they are Moorish Americans, really. They up in, and like the picture I showed in the last one, you see, they call them the Carthaginians of the Indies, and they've been different shades of people, dark from dark to light. They've been all together. Look like they've been ready to go pile up some boxes of wheat and corn and stuff to ship to another place to sell. So we can't be really coming at this from the idea of Indians as well. The United States teach us that in school. These group of people who they show you on the TV, that they got a casino and they got, they tell you these the First Nations, Obama go talk to them. We looking at this as if that's any reality, but like I said in the last video, people can be some of the Castilians in different parts. People in Europe, we've been snatching up and bringing here, and they running away and getting in the forest, and generationally they just learn that just how far they is advancing and where they at with it in the forest. So we don't know. We just rely on them to tell us that that's just what it is. It's all an illusion. Because the people who in the cities and shit, they just as indigenous as anybody who in the forest. That's just a mind state. They just ain't in that realm of having TV and shit like that. But the people who got TV and clothes on and all that shit, they been on Earth just as long as the people who don't. More advanced. So we the first people. We advancing everything. We in the 1400s already, and the palaces looking like 1800 shit. But this is what I want to get to. So they got here. They were called Kuana or Guana. My theory is that just Kuana or Kana, like Canaanite, Kana. So this corresponds to the Sarakole. So we dealing with Sara, Sonieke tribe, which is dealing with, I believe, Ponieke, which is what the Greek call Phoenicians. Ponieke. Called Caracoles, what we deal with Carter, by the Spanish. And Sarah and Carter is basically, C's and K's. We know about that. And the Mandinka Yara or Diara. So we got the Darians, the Kaba clans. The Jara and the Guaba Manding lived in Honduras. They live not just Honduras, these Canaanites, ancient Canaan. We go back to chapter 47 again. He just the same thing, no word they expressed. Since the ancient time, they've traded in the rivers and been trading from all the Holy Lands into Africa. Holy Lands meaning a certain latitude coming down into another latitude, and you can find the evidence of that all around the world. And you got people from the tundra, and you got people from the Asia latitudes, and and when you go to the bottom side of the globe or whatever, you got it. Keep going. You got Africa from Peru going down, Equator going down, and then you get back to the Holy Lands or Morocco. And when you go back down, you start to see a lot of deserts in that area. You got South Africa down there. You got Australia, and you got Mauritania, which we call Argentina, and all these places got like these climatical similarities to the one on the northern part, which is North Africa, Arabia, and these holy lands. We got the western parts of the so-called United States, and all the way up to at least Canada, and that's when you start to get into Asia climatical zone. That's what you're known as, and tundra, the cold fucking shit. Tundra meaning ice. We got that at the bottom too. All that just going into a mirror, top and bottom, and just the evidence of that. This Guyana been the kings of so-called Africa, which is at least most of out of all those zones, Africa hold out the most space and the best lands, the rivers and the plush lands. Ethiopia, the utopia. So using linguistic and epigraphic evidence, we discovered there are several bases from which Manding trade is spread in the two Americas, from northeast, eastern South America into Peru, and from the base in Darien, moving along roads marked by the presence of burial and habitational mounds and inscriptions into and beyond Mexico and as far as Canada. So, and that's a fact. These Manding languages, which is the Canaanite languages. More by all that. See, the writings of the early explorers support the African presence in much of early America. The majority of the black tribes, according to the quadriphrages in the human species, including the Koko, Manabis, Yaruras, Guarani, Cararus, and these just the same tribes on both sides of the Atlantic, like the Zenates and the Lamtunas and all these tribes. When the kings of Africa on both sides, these same tribes, just the language changed. Just like I might say the same, they got a different name than my Moorish family in California and New York. And you got the Ottomi, which is the Ottoman on the side. Yamazi, Masi. Let's check some of this out. Guba, Gebel, Guaba, River. And there's just there's hundreds and hundreds of carnations. Guaca, Kuana, again, Kaba, El Cunano, and that's California. And the Maribitanas, the Maribitos. You see, this Guyana is where a lot of the Spanish and the Portuguese, it broke up into Guyana, Dutch Ghana, or Suriname, and French Guinea, which is right there on that by Suriname, and that's today. All that right there been the Kingdom of Guinea and the Kingdom of Morocco. And on the other side, at that time, it been called Funia Sapinils. But these been the same people on both sides who've been already running the shit. And that's where they hide. The Moorish Empire, when they say empire, they're talking about kingdoms all over the place. Not just in North Africa. Matter of fact, thinking about this earlier today, the word Morocco meaning the land of Moors, or God, the land of God, the land of Moors. It's like generic, like the land of Moors. So you got that word, you got that phrase written as a word. And plenty languages, the suffix and the prefix, most likely the suffix is the land of, and the prefix is more, and in whatever language that is. So you find that in probably on each continent, every continent on this planet. And the largest land of Moors, where place that got that name, is not even what we consider the only one, which is Morocco today, which the only one we can see with our eyes. The land of Moors, Moro, and then the CCO is that version, which is English, of Old English really. That means land of Moro, and you got the land of the Moors, so Morocco. The biggest land of Moors is America on the planet today. It's two continents called the land of Moors. So you got the ICA, which is the suffix meaning land of, and you got Amer, AMER, which is this version on this side of the planet from whatever language they use to fashion that version of the land of Moors, our God. So we got Bamba and the Barbara. These the Berbers, the ancient Berbers. We got Hassam, Bela, and watch everything you see with Bela and these suffix and prefixes. When we really start looking to the language, we realize it's all ancient Canaanites and stuff like that. And we got Hassam, Ayo on the other side. You already know about Iba and Igbo. Those words got meanings too. Like we got on this side, we got Para, Iba. And when I search for this, I know it been in the old text. I've been reading Para, and they had a dash, and they had IBA in this old text. I can't even find it, but I already know that, so I look for it to see if it's still around. But it come out as this now. So the phonetics still there. Iba, Paraíba. And you find Igbo and all that too, like this. Maraca, Igbo. And we know Maraca is the prefix, and just not just one word, as they'll try to make it seem like if you go look it up. A lot of these unknown origins, they'll tell you. Or they'll tell you some indigenous tribe tell them that's what we mean, and they wouldn't have no way to verifying that. They just leave that as that. That's what we're supposed to believe that. So they'll claim that they killed off all them indigenous tribes, so we can't go back and check nothing that they claim. But where they mess up at is I can go find plenty of places we got Maraca and something else connected to it in South America, so that already showed me that that's a prefix. When you go inside these places, you got street names like this. You got Gabon, the Guinea Equatorial, Mozambique, Libya. These street names in these places that I just finished showing. You know, this place right here, Gabon. We know Gabon in West Africa, and Gamboa. I mean, this ain't Gambia, but it's Gamboa, right? Just some examples. On this island of Peru or Panama, Gulf of Panama, and you got a Guinea and that right there, and Esmeralda. These Ghanaians, quote unquote, in that zone that they call Africa in that time in them old maps. And today archaeologists finding these people in that zone all over the planet, and they're just saying that these Africans who came there, but that's ain't true, because ain't no evidence that they came there. He just some the earliest records that we got already showing that they already in that zone all over the place. Ain't no evidence showing that they don't exist already in America. Like I never see no scholar showing me that no evidence that showed that we don't already exist on the side of the planet, and then one day we come here. Can't prove that. So we just can assume, just like they assume that the American Indian just here. They don't assume that this place been just empty, and well, some people do. They assume that they come over to Bering Strait to an empty place with no people here. But I don't know how they can just make that claim, because I don't know how they can prove that this place been an empty continent of no humans. Like what old ass record that got a record? Even if you got a record, that means somebody had to write that shit. So they must have been hating to know that. You know, like it don't make no sense. We got Lucia, and they got plenty scouts of people with the same DNA genetics as her all around that place. They don't tell people. So we see Cameroon Nera, a place called Cameroon Nera. I know Cameroon. The Muslim for the Moors who they've been fighting against. You got Morab Beely River, the Morab and Beely, and that's just another Moabite, more out of Moravid and more these terms. And the Marabouts, we're gonna get into them. They've been into a lot of the wars and shit too to deal with this area right here. You see French Guinea, Suriname, and Guyana, which is probably the most indigenous term. It's like the most Moorish Latinist term of the Guinea, of Ghana. So it's a more Marabout of West Africa, the West Africa of today. Bamor, Dembele, so even a B and L, Bele, Bamor. Okay, so you see, phenotype, we already know that for West Africa. So on this research map, from some of these places don't exist today, but we got records that it was on all maps and stuff. So we got the Mount of the Morabitos, or whatever that M stand for, but we can see the Morabitos in South America. You see Berlin, that's Moabitic, and we see San Miguel and Tenerife and Madeira. These, we know these from the old conquests that I've been saying earlier, that before Columbus and stuff like that, been stuff going on. You know, looking to Portobello and to the, how they got the religions and that. Go in their church in Portobello, you see the dark skinned Christ, great black Christ. They call him Negro Cristo. And cathedrals. And the Nazarenes and these Morabitos, these, you know, we going back to the Holy Lands. But the Stowe is known as the Zone of Africa on the old maps. Qatar and stuff. So it's from that book, that picture from this book right here. In the city of the Marabouts, Islamic cultures in the West Africa. Now this shows in the last one, but we dealing with these Ghanaians in this video. What is it? You see, we always dealt with the knowledge. Embrace knowledge of people. So we see in Brazil, we can see a depiction of what's going on in this Morocco. We see the Andalusian style. You see, just like the Alamo, right? All these styles is like Almoravid, and we find it all over the world. And I always say most of them is red roof and white and light colors. Houses with red roofs, like red roof and all the hotels look like they're trying to market the architecture. They know that that's what that stamp of these people is. You see some of them. I could have just take this part out and tell you that's been West Africa or Morocco. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know the difference. have to pick the picture. You see, Morocco style. You see that tower, like Tunis, Tunisia. You see the Moors. See, Alamo style. A lot of history happening in South America that deal with the empire that they just don't want to talk about. And it's the Paco. The Paco was the officer of the King of Portugal and the Brazil's two emperors. So, like I said in the beginning, the first slide, we can't dismiss if we're going to talk about the Brazilian, how they get to be empress. So, the Portuguese. If we're going to talk about that and deal with that, we can't dismiss the other side of this. Because wherever there's Christianity, there's Islam. See, these is called Moorish. Anybody be finding out over Portugal, So we seen in here. This over. So it's from one artist, I think, or two. And we see in Portugal, Moors and Christians. And look at these ones. And chains and shit. A lot of these captives come right from the wars that been happening over here and in the seas of Ghana and, so-called Africa, that over there. So, the kings wear the cross of the Order of Santiago. So now we see who the kings of the Order of Santiago been. Even though the soldiers might show up as so-called Caucasian peoples, but the kings of the Romans for a long time been these Moors, and they might have been from all over the world, like Brazil and West Africa and all that. We know, especially with West Africa, that they've been had plenty family ties with the kings of Brazil and the princes, like marrying each other's sisters and shit, right? We know them stories. The Portuguese will tell you that the Africans sold us the slave because we've been already dealing with them, but these Portuguese today ain't been, we don't really need to get colorable with it because we're only dealing with the facts. We're only dealing with what the records say, regardless of how anybody looks, just what happened, who did what, using names, and the names of the entity are the actual culprit, the person. Truth. So we see the Iberian Peninsula. This could be Lisboa, but they put it at Lisbon. But Lisboa might have a square that is just like this one. If you go look around, you might find a square today. And I not look, but I find them, but stuff like that. Lisboa on this side and Lisboa on this side, and the Portuguese been, that been they ground, they playground. And these so-called, they call them Creoles on this, but we know Greek, ancient Greek Creoles just mean Christ figures, nobles. You see him with a rosary cross type thing. So Maori, Moors, and Christians. You see her with a turban. Moors. But they'll call these people and their descendants Afro-Brazilians today. And that's where the Christians win at. They win at that point because now the enemy, they don't know who they is. They can fight them without even them knowing they're in the fight. And here you see some more. You see royalty shit going on. Again, the people, the Palanquins, Jesus, and they call us also a Sudan. And these people is known as the people of Sudan, Belé del Ciba, so-called land of blacks, Tierra de Negros. That's what the word Palanquin, they equate that in the Palenques to being dark skinned too, because they know these people been royal lords and nobles when they came from here, all the way from Peru, all the way to East Asia. They got the same customs. So they say, damn, how do people know? Because they one big ancient royal family, just that huge at that point. And a lot of, and like, we ain't gonna dismiss that a lot of these nobles are getting caught up in wars and being captives. So you got that blood of these so-called Atlantic slave trade, and you got the blood of the Moors who been the culprits in capturing other Moors or going to war with different kingdoms. And you got the Europeans who came later who caused destruction. History is a long and thing, and your ancestors will go into the millions, just not even that far back. So we can put a lot of things to rest and just focus on what the history said, put that back. Alright, so he said he called him the infant, like the Portuguese kings. And a white, and got a white infant. You see the already used blanc, which the English is the only child of the Latin. Well, the English is the grandchild of the Latin, so the English definitely should have had the word Negro or Neger, how they say the so-called racist nigger, as the original term for black, for that color. But they switched it up and they used the term white for that color, which is the term called black, BLACK, which should have been the color white linguistically. The children of Latin, France, Spanish, and Portuguese, all that, they use it properly. Every word that they got, nor, negro, stuff like that, is just the color black. So English should have followed that same tradition. After the Treaty of Tordesillas, okay, 1494 and 1495. And we all know the Treaty of Tordesillas, the split up the world empires, the world empire being attacked by European discoverers, claiming that they got the divine right to discover and convert the pagans of the planet and the Saracens and destroy them and put them in perpetual slavery wherever they may be found, in their duchies and their kingdoms and their dominions. That's what the treaties say. The Treaty of Tordesillas. So evidence that right. They already evidence that the church owe me and the Moors and all these people reparations for that, because that's the slavery document that kick it off for these destruction of these people. And the treaty left its mark, writing in Guinea from Canaries. So from the Canary Islands, they setting up bases to ride on these Moors, who jumped, capturing blacks. And the aftermath of the protests of the King of Portugal had the aftermath of the protests of the King of Portugal. In the provision, Catholics alluded directly to a treaty with no relations with the Bojador fisheries, but with Guinea. So the Portuguese been getting mad at these Catholics for jumping in Brazil or West Africa, Guinea, in these waters right here, because the Portuguese already been dealing with the Sharif, and that's basically they've been dealing with those lands, so the jurisdiction been their jurisdiction, so the people been under their protection. The people who they jumping on, but the Brazilians, they start to be, not the Brazilians, the Portuguese Brazilians or whatever, they start to go deeper and deeper into the lands and enslaving with the banderas and stuff like that themselves. So I ain't trying to make them look like they been nice big good guys here. But he protested us. So anyway, we're looking at it from what the record is saying. So with the Bojador fisheries, which were show that we dealing with Moorish Empire type thing. When we deal with the word Guinea, that automatically in our mind today just dealing with Ghana, West Africa, and it don't put us in the mind state we dealing with Moors and Christians. It us dealing with West Africans based off how they portray it, right? So she got to make that. She say the treaty don't show that relationships, but the second one ratifies it, showing that relationship like a motherfucker. Stolen 3 Portuguese ships from Guinea, one on the way with Arambeles for barter, the other on the return from the mine, which is La Mina. We got Minas in Brazil today. Say with gold, these Ghanaians would always know gold. And the third loaded with sugar from Madeira, which we know is in Brazil, bound for Flanders, another European. The king ordered to return the cargo to the king of Portugal, mentioned peace recently signed. So they got signed. So they're saying basically us and Castile already got a treaty. So stay on your side of the Americas, we stay on our side and stop jumping on our side, capturing out the people, which at this time they calling blacks. Even Portugal dealing with that because the Negro River right there, and all these tribes around the Negro River getting that name. And on the other side, the Niger River is also means black in Latin, and those tribes get that term in English. Both of those rivers translate to the Black River, and the people around those rivers is the tribes of that in both sides of Africa, or Ethiopia, or whatever you want to call it, America and Africa today. So the how the second ratifies by using terms like this, Madeira and stuff like that, because that's what we know. And historically, Brazilian used to name these squares in Brazil, South America. So mention peace, and they say Bartolomeo Maquino, Florentine, resident in Lisbon and a tenant of Guinea, so he had a house on both sides, sent blacks to Valencia in the caravel of Alonso Yanez. It was, so they see they going back and forth. Moors even going back and forth, and the so-called slavery thing already popping off. The first incidences of this is them taking people from here and going over back into Europe. And like we see on that painting over there, some of them been in chains, right? And at this time, in the Portuguese and in the Spanish mind, at this time, they had war with Moors in Morocco, in the land of Moors. That's what they thinking. That's how they looking at it. The stuff we're dealing with Indians, that stuff been created later. We've been showing, and in many videos they don't show that. So, and I've been dealing with how we call Castile and the church dealt with the situation. Portugal dealt with it in a way that would make you think they're talking about West Africa, and that's how a lot of the modern day writings of Portugal dealing with the slave trade. That's how they look. That's how they frame it. They make it look like they've been the ones who bringing all these West Africans to Brazil and all these places, South America, Portuguese, because of their dealings. They've been using terms like Africa and Ghana. So the way they destroy the Moorish Empire story of South America is by just making it look like they've been dealing with Africans in West Africa instead of Moorish Americans in that time. So it was stolen upon return with freight to rescue. After the fact occurred in April, the complaint was dealt with on July 7th after the signing of the treaty. The interest of the last document is that the boat hijacked in the waters of Cabo de Aguirre by a caravel of San Lucar belonged to Diego Rodriguez Prieto, a neighbor of Palos. So, these Moors of Palos, these the one who everybody just looking at as the real Columbuses, the ones who've been the navigators and stuff like that. These Paloses. And they've been we'll read about them a little bit more. So let's see these what all us right here come from these. So don't ever let nobody just say all these stuff like this, make these claims, even in your history books that we see. Nobody, because ain't nobody been around at the year 1494 to tell you nothing that happened in 1494. So you gotta know where you getting this. So that's what we getting, the 1495 document. Even though we can't read this to verify that that's what she talking about, you still can get these documents from her record books. You can order a copy and go translate it. So in this document, he says something about being captured in blacks in Guinea and talking about the Treaty of Tordesillas. She getting this from this. And when they talk about capturing blacks in Guinea and the Treaty of Tordesillas together, that's telling you they're talking about a Guinea of America, because the Treaty of Tordesillas really been the breakup of the what they gonna do between Spain and Portugal and the new conquests that they're dealing with in this side. The European attacks on the other side happened later. We already know that from the different conferences and shit they had, and the wars between the French and the Spanish and all that in that part. After they done did what they did over here, other European nations, being jealous, like, hey, I want to do the same thing. Started to do it in the other side. They started to do the Congo thing and the thing, because the Spanish and the church already now sold the side out, so they ain't had no more to steal. So the death of the Portuguese Ghanaian ships and peace in this one. She talk about that up here, and that's where she get that from. How they ask for their ship back, because we had peace in these waters. And you got the Ghanaian lease, somebody leasing something, and the Caravel Pito. Old documents from that time. And that's all we can work with, because ain't nobody got no time machine. I ain't care if he the top professor on the planet from Yale. He ain't got no time machine, so he gotta show me too. Where he get anything he claim from. Even if he records that you claiming that is in the Vatican somewhere, whatever, you gotta show me something. 1639, that's the report on the situation in Saleh. And we still dealing with American documents. And trade with Morocco for wax, and she put the products that showed that wax and nitrate and wheat come from America and not what we think Morocco is, but they using Morocco in that document, which is clues, and the stolen of Kidam books, and more evidence. There's a book that she put all this in, out of print, of course. It's called Africa versus America. She started to find out that we talking about empire, a group of people who disconnected, like Nobudrali said, the Ethiopian Ocean mean division, to divide, and that's what exactly how we think. We think that place over there is a different place from here, and vice versa. So you got half us who brace one side and not the other, and the record show that she's showing is that it been a lot of manipulations to make our mind state in the world today get that understanding. The changing of the way we see the world from the climate map to seven continent map and delivery done to hide gold mines, and a lot of the place names get put from here to West Africa into the islands all across the Atlantic to again hide gold mines. Ain't really deliberately to deceive the world, but that's what happened from that back. But also we can still see it put sea monsters on maps, and when we look at the map, you see them sea monsters on the maps. There are ways to hide them, all temporary secrets. preserve and publish the instruction of Isabel, who were governed in Vidor. Their similarity with those that supposedly gave to Columbus is evident, noting that the natives voluntarily agreed to pay the outcasts of the crown. Noting that the natives voluntarily agreed, so a lot of them natives agreed to be down with Castile now. So they say, but which they gave to the ancestral Moorish kings. Talking about American natives at this time, right? Columbus. So these instructions that have been given to him from Isabel, people were going down, and they trying to get them to pay without having to fight them or force them, because they expect them to pay them like they've been paying the Moorish Americans since time immemorial. So it would be collected with gentleness, like I just said. They don't want to force them. Since they were well treated, they would obey better. And Torres charged he would negotiate profitable for the monarchs, taking care not to promise what he could not fulfill. The Moors, and she put that in quotes because, right, Moors don't supposed to be in the story with early America and Columbus and Spain. Everybody else can be in the story, but Moors get wiped out that story. So she put the Moors that they did not use the lie. So the Moors over here who already understand that they've been Moors and these people were Christians and they've got the empires all over the world. The Moors who had that understanding in America at this time already, I know what's up with these Christians. But a lot of the natives didn't, because most of the Moors used to leave these natives alone. That's why we don't see a lot of the stories in Arabic and talk about the Moors attacking a lot of these tribes, because the Europeans started to find these so-called natives everywhere in the forests and doing, living in so-called primitive from them, or the other Moors that they've been dealing with who, dress the same fashion, we got the same thing, because, it ain't good to bother people, for one. And like this should say, they've been paying the Moorish kings, which is their people, taxes. This we got government shit going on and all that. And they said they did not use the lie. That's just how they speak, because they translate this from Spanish. Say they despised the one that they did not fulfill the given word. The prestige lost. The officer would have no more authority than the emanating from force. You see, so now if they can't get you to obey by going to church and going to mass and putting the tithes on your own woe, then they gotta go by force and other trickery, because they ain't your people. They come to exploit you. Your people wouldn't do that to you, so that's conquering, and that's a crime. So they going trying to not make it a crime by getting you to do it yourself. So the office, they say, inevitably facing an inconvenient resistance, whether active or passive. So that's when you start to turn the walls of conquests. But at first, they always try to just register and go to church and act like they bringing you some God, bring you, they gotta bring a God to the Indios, the people without the God. And and to them at that time, it just mean a lord, somebody they paying their taxes to. And they been looking for them tribes that ain't been paying the tax to the Sharif, because the Sharif are protecting them and they won't fight. So the tribes that already been just out there been victims early, and so they started to get some of those islands around the kingdoms under Sharifs and started to go to war from there, using them people from those islands as soldiers and shit. Giving them lands and titles that they steal and shit, conquest from their own people on this side. But long story. So let's go fast. Lucas du Toy wrote his chronicle, commissioned by Queen Dendina Berenguela, in Latin and in the 13th century translated into Spanish, and the calligraphy of the copy used points to the 14th century. All all these stories that I read now, just the history of the people on the side, man. This the indigenous American history not being told. So um, in Lucas the Toy Chronicle, we're gonna look at what he talking about from the 13th century. In the time of King Ordano II, the Berbers were called Chaldeans, right? Taking us back to the Canaanites and stuff like that. And the Castilians, Goths. So we already got the Castilians as the Visigoths or Goths in North Africa in ancient times, but not as Castilians, as Goths. That's why ain't nothing come just pop out. Everything got an origin. It ain't never nothing under the sun. The residents of the Moreria in Leon, unable to suffer the Christians, asked the king of Cordoba, Abdurrahman. So you got the residents of the Moria in Leon asking the Moors for help from these Christians. Abdurrahman for help, who asked the great king of the Arginos. He sent him a great copy of Moors. I don't know what he mean by copy, but it's a translation, so context clues help us. With two great leaders in front, Hulo, Bulabad, and Vermesus. So they got Latin names. They planted countless stores on the Douro riverbank near San Esteban de Cormas. Ordano came with the host of the Goths. He came with a group of Goths. And the damage that was done was so great in the face of the crowd of dead bodies. So, evil shit. It seemed to rise from the height of the Mount Pascar. So they caused so much destruction wherever they go. In this certain instance, the dead bodies been as high as a mountain. Sad shit. On the day they fell, many Hagarites and the king of the Tigitanos. So, that's what we be saying about these Arabs and whatever in North Africa. They don't ever want to tell you about all the different historical events that happen with Goths and Romans and stuff like that. And they want to act like the people of North Africa different from people of Sub-Sahara and stuff like that. Like, these people ain't been leaving North Africa from these wars and these devastations. They've been leaving them places after building great palaces and cities there. So people come later and claim that and shit. But they don't talk about these historical events, because that can prove that all kingdoms that you probably is the Goths, for all we know. Who knows? If you don't mention these histories, then you hide something from how I look at it. On the day they fell the Hagarenes and the Tikitanos, which is these ain't nothing but the ancient Egyptians who already been spread upon North Africa, with which Avia named Almokarad, originated from the Tikitans of Mauritania Tikitana, a kingdom that survived in the first decade of the 15th century, and names evokes the word gypsy. Like I say, they've been the Egyptians who already been spread all over the world by this time of this event. It is noteworthy that the Ordano captured the admiral of the king of Cordoba, a position that indicates the relationship of the Andalusian Muslims with the sea and possession of the army. So the capture of already did that. Okay, now let's look at Portugal routes. So Lisbon, their favorite home. And right, we got Seville, we got all the way up here, and cause they know the reason why these routes been the Moorish from all over the world. Moors create kingdoms and stuff right here to control a lot of the trade in the world. So these Portuguese that come later, after hundreds and hundreds of years, they had a lot of the information, the books and the stuff about the world. So they went around to deal with it. And up here, we've been dealing with the Moors of North east part of this part right here, and the tobacco trades and the different trades, and it's up here, right? So you see they going up there. They know about the trade routes. So the Azores, you know, and you see the Canaries. Those Canaries, even too much. If you go read about the Canary Wars, even on Wikipedia, you can look at these Canaries and see that this don't make no sense for them to even be fighting the low ass tribes in these low ass islands for what? What you want on that island, and the geography. If you really read about those wars and stories about Canaries, these geographies ain't matching up. The huge rivers and the mountains and waterfalls, but over here we can match it up. We're calling this the Canary Islands. You see from Portobello down to Callao. So, but we can see that how they've been dealing with the Africa, the Moorish Empire. That's what Portugal dealt with, and you see the range that they went in. Right, they went from, you see what Veracruz at down to Rio, but they going all the way around the world. The east, this part, and this part, and even in this part, you can see less dealings on this map with the Africa that we know of today. This side and this side getting most of the action. And the Portuguese playing mostly down here in the Gulf of Ghana, this side and this side. And Castillo play more up here. But Portuguese still had the Algarve, which been on this. What you see with that yellow? This been Algarve and Algarve. Okay. All these places right here show up in record books as dealing with conquest and war. Malacca, even up to Nagasaki. We got a Moro Kai up here, which is another land of Moors in that language. East and West Indies. Felipe Segunda. He claimed it and collected those taxes. From that, they became rich conquerors of the world. So let's look at the Mogador contradiction, which we got a Mogador everywhere in the world today. A couple in North America. Okay, so a Mogador is mentioned as a port next to the Cape of Aguirre in 1463. So what she does, she put this side, which is Brazil area, South America, and she put the side that correlate in the record books and the confusion, and this Morocco, Northwest Africa. So we can see Mazagal, Saho, Mogador, and Agadir. But these places been changed on this side because the gold mine's been here and they don't want no other navigators to find them. So when you're gonna look for Mogador, you're gonna be right over here looking for the gold mine. So they got there was also an island in the Cape of Mogador or Mogador, which belonged to the King of Morocco. So an island. So we got plenty islands right here, but we got firm land mostly right here. But you know, with the rivers, we can say that these also is islands. So the evidence ain't gonna stick. But the Mogador up here look like a city, a beach city. So the record's contradicting itself when we're thinking about a modern map. And we're looking at documents from 1463 talking about Mogador, right? So when mentioning the private boat rivers, forests, and pastures celebrating their fertility, so off the top, forests, pastures, and boat rivers, and all that dealing with records and dealing with a Mogador, and these were all records. So we got pastures, forests, and a whole bunch of rivers, and we got beach and deserts. You could find pastures, you see the palm, but they celebrating abundance of it. At this time, this place used to be like this, but it already been drying up. And as most we already know that we already been on both sides saying that shit 1,000 years before they come into play. So they got a name that the Portuguese so celebrating the fertility, such as that of the sailors of Barbaria of Cadiz. So the sailors they calling themselves of Barbaria of Cadiz. So yeah, Cadiz over in Barbaria, on probably on both sides. Because Cadiz probably mean, Cadiz is Gades, which is the ancient biblical. Let me get into that. Let's continue. But who called it Santa Cruz? So talking about Santa Cruz, that's what they call it. A name that the Portuguese gave to the population of the island, and the Muslims reserved when speaking of pastures and abundance of cattle. So the Moors called it Santa Cruz too. They reserved that, moved it away from the official location on the Moroccan coast, south of Safi and north of Agadir and Mogador, which belonged to the kingdom of Mecca or Mesa. Talking about our side. There was the city of Tagaos, and the house of Agadir. The Castilians putting religion first. So that's when how Castilians looked at naming their maps, naming the places on their maps through religious thinking. So placed it in Barbary. So a MataMoros exists here religiously. So words that consist of Moorish things on a map belongs here. So that's why we look at Christian maps today and everything there. And out of place in this side of the world, everything Moorish is out of place to the Christians. They trying to destroy you in that fashion, right? So they got the Castilians. That's what they did. The Europeans more interested in the name of a man, Africa, for being the majority of the black population. So the other Europeans just called it Africa. Whenever they find people who, to them, is dark skinned. She said that's what they did when they did their maps. And that's the maps that even some maps that I can't really prove, but they'll have like Beled El Siba or Beled El Sudan and stuff like that. The land of this, Sudan will be the land of blacks. So, But anyway, we got in 1619, the governor offered to deliver Santa Cruz with his hand to Felipe III, generated interesting documentation. Like the rest of the Cape Aguirre region, the House of Contract and Control Trade, taking care of the cleaning the Corsair Coast, the Navy of the Ocean Sea, and other bodies created the destined for the Indies of the Indies. So this Navy of the Ocean Sea and stuff been sent to go against the Moors who've been in the seas with him under no other Moors who had treaties with these people. So they've been calling them Corsairs. They just been out there allegedly plundering. But we got merchants and stuff like that who will pay the church or Castillo or the Sharif or whatever for protections and stuff. So Corsairs ain't really been something people I want around, because they've been businessmen. They don't want these ships to get plundered, because some pirate and want to plunder it. So the Navy of the Ocean Sea been like the police of the seas for the Castilians. So they created the destined for the Indies, and that's what they've been dealing with, America. And a lot of the records of this nation, the OVC, has been dealing with terms like Agadir and Tagos. So she finding these contradictions. So watch me how we see what they say. The descriptions of Mogador match the Isles of Marajo. So they say the people of Cadiz, professionals from Barbary, so these people who've been knowing about this whole empire, these Moors who she get a lot of the records from the Moors who've been in Spain, but they've been like we see it from one of the Moors early who had a house in Spain, Portugal, and away. That's how he been. We if we get our mind off the fact that the world ain't know about the Western Hemisphere until this guy decided to be brave and go over the horizon, then we can be able to stomach the information and be able to see how terms like Barbary is being used, talking about America or any place with Barbary at on a climatal map, which would be north of Africa and south of the Africa zone on the climatal map. Barbary or Morocco. So you say who had their own private morgador. So they got the people, these Moors had their own private morgador on the island of Morocco. And they called it morgador. And I was saying earlier about Maracaibo. They would make it look like one word, but you got an island of Morocco without the Ibo. So now you got to explain, is that a suffix or a prefix with a suffix? And called the other islands Santa Cruz. So these Moors called another island Santa Cruz and called their island Mogador. And you got other Moors who call it the Mogador, they think Santa Cruz, which this how confusion began because everybody mapped got a different name for the same geography. So placing it 30 leagues in the direction of Cabo Blanco, which was at the end of the island, and the Huma del Rio Large. And what she's using now, Cabo Blanco and Huma del Rio, are modern place names that show you what she's talking about historically. That's what these maps are showing you. So people will stop commenting me and telling me that I'm making fake maps and stuff, because I make that and she make that for navigation purposes. It's historical research maps. You got place names from different time periods that don't exist no more on it, and you got place names that still there on it to show you. And everything on that map got a story to connect to that. The reason why it's there for is in case you want to know why we would put that there. We could just put Africa on a map, drawn on a map that looked like the shit was South America just to sound good. Alright, so that's why she put in Cabo Blanco to show you. You go look today what she talking about with the area. So being the place name that replaced that of Aguirre. So it used to be called Aguirre, just like on the side. Now it's the Huma del Rio Large. Taking care of cleaning the coast of privateers, the navy of the ocean sea, and other bodies created and destined for the Indies. Oh, we already read that, right? Yeah. And I don't know why you repeat yourself when I try to translate them, but you do. Okay. And these, again, some of the records that give us this correlations that we can put. They were talking about the island of Mogador in Africa, but talking about South America. And this one, he called people in Santa Cruz the Gaditanos, like Cadiz or Gadit, which is biblical, ancient. And people on YouTube, I see a video on YouTube, and they say, so-called Jesus or Isa, whatever, get on the ship and go and visit Cadiz, a Cadiz, or whatever that's what they believe. And Gaditanos, these ancient Moabites. Okay, so people from Barbary, in some way in this, she find that it's not the Barbary that we know. That's why he called her book called Africa versus America, because she seeing what side they talking about, and a lot of them, she probably found that it was talking about the other side, and sometimes talking about this side. That's why her map show research evidence on both sides of the old place names. And she actually traveled this 30 years worth of research. She actually traveled to these places to see that if she can see that this document say a mountain should be here, so let's me go see. Well, she could be lying, but that's what she said in her interview. So take it for what she say. Hearsay. 30 years trying to figure out So the Cape Verde Islands that we just finished talking about, let's dig into that. The Cape Verde begin in eastern South America. So I'm already telling you what she mean when she said some of the most we call it Cape Verde. And Cape Verde, Santa Cruz, we dealing with the same thing, because every Cape Verde been they put a cross we call Saint Cross, in which became Santa Cruz, and they plant the cross in the Cape Verde. So um, these islands called Cape Verdes that's all over the world called Cape Verdes of the Green Cape. And let me see, Verde, I believe, is like were without the D, and we get de la Verde, which is another Cape Verde, or Delaware. So Mo's been naming those types of lands all over the world in that climate words that deal with the green or the capes. And I believe that's what de la Verde is, the French or the old French, Moorish Latin, Moorish old French um, version of that, Delaware. But I ain't sure, like I ain't sure enough to tell you that more come from the Sinai and Egyptian and Southern Arabia, because I can show you and guide you through the linguistically. I can't really do it right quick now, but I'll do it. Figure that out. That Delaware is that too. They tell you other stuff on Wikipedia, but they do tell you that it come from the old French word Delaware, and they break them out like that. So that's been a tip they help me look into where, and it take me all over the place, but it ain't take me to Verde. But when I see Verde, I start to click with that word where. The Cape Verde began in eastern South America, ending at the Little Sea or Mar Pequena at this time. Now Mar Pequena is over there, just like a lot of places they put over there to hide the mines. So, and the Cape Verde Islands, including Paria, which I believe is Faria, or Afar, just like Africa, on the edge of the Portuguese firm land. So, firm land just means something they call firm land. The last being the island of St. Lucia. So you got St. Lucia over here too now. Cardamosto claimed the discovery in 1456, and then Genoese Antonio Noli. See these Genoese, all these old Templars who already had know about a lot of this stuff, but now it getting to be mainstream. It's getting to be known as a kingdoms of Moors that the Europeans must go discover over the seas. So in this time period, I don't know why I did that, but in this time period, this was going on. So we got Cado Masto, look into him, and we got another Genoese, other than Columbus, before him, Antonio Noli, who lived in Porto Santo in 1476 under the name of the Isles of Antonio, or Primera. So we talking about America, other conquerors who naming places. The Catholic granted them to the Duke of Medina Sidonia. So at the end of the day, the Catholics in the Holy Church, and they start to split it up because they already been conquering it. By 1492, the treaty told the Caesars era, they splitting up stuff they already had conquered that they don't tell nobody about. They act like they just discovered it in 1492. No, they already splitting up a whole lot of stories connected to how they get that right. Like, if you think about it, people don't ever act like what give them the right to split up America half and half and give half to Spain and Portugal. Like, who's these people on this side of the world saying that they can do that? Because there's a lot of stuff that happened to lead up to that with this empire of the world, the order of Islam and the order of Christ. And the Catholics granted them to the Duke of Medina Sidonia, making the conquest a precondition. So the Duke of Medina Sidonia got a lot of land that they call Primera over here right now. So it does not seem that Enrique de Guzman moved a finger for taking control of the lordship. So, a lot of these people was Moors who from here. Like I said earlier, a lot of them us these Castilians and Catholics under these names, but they like empower their lords and shit, and they just ain't paying the Sharif. They paying the Catholic Church. They paying the Pope instead of Sultan. But the army formed by the Catholics to continue the war in Guinea plundered the island. Talking about South America now. Crumpled Antonio Noli gave obedience to Fernando in 1477, so now they stealing from each other. Surrendering to the island, submission that earned him the preservation of the captaincy. So the conquest that he get Primera in America in early 1476 been taken by Fernando in 1477 so he can be a captain. So a lot of that's been happening to these Moors who won't be slick and just deal with the Christian as allies, and these dudes been like under the trickery thing, crossing them, boy. And now Papa Kings of the Indies. And the citizens and the people who been under that power, paying the taxes, and under that dominion or plantation colonization, been Indians of the Indies. They get that status. They ain't gonna kill you now. Like now, you are one of our citizens in the Indies. So fearing so they say in 1478, the sign of war changed, Noli returning to Portugal's obedience. So he jumped from Castile to Portugal's side, because that's the war between Castile and Portugal for America that lead up to the treaties of Tordesillas to split it between the two. Fearing a violent response from the Catholics because they called the Canaries of lordship to war, forming an army to go to Gran Canaria. So they finding some other Moorish allies over here to go fight in the area they call them firm land and stuff that now before Columbus and stuff, which is Gran Canaria. We know we can look up Gran Colombia, and they'll spell them just like that, Gran, but they'll say Colombia if you look on Wikipedia. But that's Gran Canaria to them. So the bridges, merchants, Rubias, fearing that what might happen to the business in their factory, Pedro Montoya, a gypsy surname, asked to the kings who gave him assurance. So a whole lot of stories of the shaping of this Americas was deliberately hidden. So Alinde, which means again beyond. Allen is beyond, and de is from beyond. That's what Alinde means. We break them down. And then de, from the beyond, and that's the name that give her the clue that Africa been any place on the planet with this climate. So she had to go look for this term to find American history that people ain't looking at as American history because of that. They spell, which is Roman. They don't know Afriquia is just the country of the Afar, Ifri, with the Ika, which again, just like America, just means the land of Afar, the land of Afar or Afar, or whatever you want to make that. It's like America. You got the land of Amer, wherever you want to make that. I ain't making it where else more in that language, which again, just is only our modern political geography mentality look at Africa as that today, and the people over there on that geography landmass. But when she using it, we can't think like that, because they ain't got the same maps. They can't go on Google Maps on their phone 500 years ago, right? To see where Africa at. So a robbery that included a fishery of the fish or the cod, where the bass was robbed, to work with caravels registered in Porto de Santa Maria during the war between Enrique IV and his brother Alfonso XII. The robbery was the Guinea of the gold mine and the rescues. So she got a lot of records saying that the Catholic Church been giving them license to go rescue Christian captives from Morocco and the Saleh and these places in America. To show that shit been real, and now they ain't being told. Like I said earlier, a lot of these so-called indigenous tribes could be people who ain't never get rescued and just ain't never get put back in society after being caught up in one of these wars that they probably Castilians from Europe ain't up over here like that. And these rescues, and a lot of times later on they start to just use that excuse to come steal, like asking the church for license to go make war on the Moors or any enemy against the holy faith, our holy faith, right? So even if they ain't been into Islam, they still would have used that idea that they ain't under the holy faith of the, the sacred mother and child and the Christianity creed and whatever. So they los incendios. Like they probably had treaties with Islam and Sharif that they couldn't break, so they definitely looking for anybody who ain't been that to exploit. From the coast of the Manigueta or the pepper, and we still dealing with the coast of the Manigueta and the pepper been like Grenada and the islands of Grenada. Right now we can find them companies that create companies like that, like how they did with the Arroyo salt mines. A lot of stories dealing with Moors and Christians in the war for the salt mines, which they don't use the terms arroyo. We probably use, like we know, Moorish terms, Tunis, Morocco. But these stories dealing with a salt mine, we can go in Arroyo and find desert lands and these same geography that these stories presenting. And even today, the salt mine still in a company that sells salt, got their business out there. You can go look on Google Maps for a salt industry right in Arroyo, South America. And she didn't even mention that, but she mentioned Arroyo and the walls between salt mines and stuff. And by me going on Google Maps and having Google Maps, she never had that, but she claimed that going all these places to check around. She never mentioned that a modern day salt company right there in the area that she talking about. I should say, boom, see it, it's still going on. That's your salt company. So ships from Allende confesses, or that's how she getting a lot of the records of the Grenada documents, that ships that coming from Allende are from beyond at this time. Confesses cotton cargo. A lot of cotton fields in South America. And they also brought indigo and horses from Allende. So about the time of the fall of Malaga, the Alfagami family asked the Catholic for insurance to go to the Allende in the Barbarian land of Moors. And all those terms is synonymous with the term Morocco and the term America. Land of Moors is just this modern day version of this. And At this time, they ain't had the term America to use for this. So they say Allende in the Barbary, the MataMoros, this Afghani family, when they asked these Catholics for the insurance to go. They've been leaving Malaga because they've been falling over there. And so if they had traveled to the other side of the straits, which we supposedly think is Allende in the Barbary, land of beyond in the Barbary, land of Moors, right? The other side from Spain. They would not have needed a license from the King of Castile to reside. Both expelled Muslims and expelled Jews choose this Barbary for land of asylum. And they got the Card Bay, like she talking about the Card Bay, and by New Hampshire and shit, still called Cape Cod today. And these records talking about stuff that going on in places where the cards, fisheries and stuff. So the other colonists called colons, the other colons, that's what this one calls. She's talking about how confusion continue. So the last name Cologne was common. We find it in Latin countries and in almost all regions, without anything indicating kingship to the different branches to each other. It is unlikely that the Genoese discoverer had it, so he ain't even been a Cologne out of that family. He had it with the discoverer had it with the Corsair Columbus, captain of the Louis XI of France. So it's a different Columbus, a Corsair, who appears as an admiral in the chronicles. So he's an admiral, documented in the history of Ocoa because he captured him with his boat. And as a result of an encounter with the Basque Juan de Granada and La Coruna, Alonso de Palencia quotes him repeatedly in his chronicle, and he even blames the war in Guinea. So he blamed him for that. Michelotto, nephew of Columbus's wife, continued the profession. In 1487, he stole the passport Pedro de Ade of 200 barrels at the Darville Spillway. So like we talked about earlier, the passport event that been recorded, that basically she's saying happened somewhere on the side of the world in a place where there's card. So she dealing with that evidence. She didn't want to say Cape Cod Bay. She said, but just like everything else, she's showing you the evidence and you go make out. We can't really know about the time machine, but Juan de Granada forgiven for fighting with Columbus. So he had fight with Columbus in the seas. This dude, but they don't tell us none of these stories. 1487, the nephew of Columbus' wife steals Ade's ship. And these Columbus, he after reading this book, he just take credit for everything. Or they just make it look like they create a story, but they give him the headline. Like if I make a movie, who the head actor, I cast him as the head actor. Like they cast one of the many names and people who lead up to the conquering of the Americas by the Spaniards and the Portuguese. Get rid of everybody out the story or move this story to another reality. Like something happened in the wars of West Africa, so they put some of them over there. Canary Islands, they put some of the stories over there. And these estates lost from all these people who they claim a part of these old stories. So, and even the term India, we can see that the term India on both sides, and so we can see that that's a practice of them, right? So that's what we digging into, the truth of the matter. So this whole thing was written, and she showed you from what she reading. Unfortunately and intentionally lost the books of accounts prior to 1493, so a lot of stuff lost. and not a few later of relations with the Indies in the period that preceded the Columbian. We have no trace other than the last quests of 1503, the year in which the House of Recruitment was created. Unfortunately for the trade, until the last moment, the Guzman on duty took wheat to the places of Allende from the King of Portugal by the Barbate River. So she stole some of the records that she said it should be thousands or millions of documents between the trades between America and Europe and then Africa and all this shit. But these people burn millions of documents and they claim they burn a lot of books, but I believe it's just these records right here. And her family, who been practicing Islam in secret, she got access to that library and a lot of the Moorish is still in there. And she, we'll do that in the next video from her interview. Look through, just read her interview. All right, to see why it's important that we go through her works. And if we lying, just speak, we'll go get the records ourselves and prove it. So he said also pass through the contract the goods from the Canary Islands and from Kafi or Safi, who was at the Cape of Arguer, and Pora Catano sent hides and slaves in exchange for wheat and oil, being the great exporter Duke of Cape Verde. So you got Ampora Catano. So you know he from here sending slaves and hides in exchange for wheat and oil before Columbus. So we got a name and places and stuff like that of history being left out. So you got the copy of the letters that she got from the Guzman. She got most of the stuff from the Guzman. That's her people. And he talking about deal with the purchase of wheat, the Canary Islands. You got the coffee, and you got Linde, and you got Tenerife, and all that in these documents right there. And the grain from the places of Linde for the King of Portugal, and the wheat and the Linde, and all that in these. And that page, the evidence of what she's saying. So I'm gonna do a few more battery on there. So in Alarache, and if we go back in our video, probably I read most of this and try to make a different point. But this video, I dealing with Guinea, the wars of Guinea, and the fall of that empire, and those Moors who've been ancient, from the biblical aspect and historical. Like we start in the beginning, these Kana, Kwana, Ghana, Garka, these people. And you see Gran Canaria, all that area they call it the wars with Canary and Canary and all that. That's Ghana, Ganaria, or Canaria, no matter which one is still Ghana. So the wars of Ghana and the wars of Canaria, they talk about the same people, but different parts of this empire. You got the wars of Ghana happening in the seas of Ghana with the Portuguese and all that. You got the wars against these same Ghana kings in north part of South America and Mexico and the islands, which ended up being in the hands of the Castilians. So you got Spanish and Portugal, and both of them fighting Ghanaians from, especially in the case of Portugal, from Peru to all the way to Australia and back to Peru, all the way around in those kingdoms of these Canarians, Canaanites. So you know that's why we see the Phoenicians, we see these city-states, we see most of it in a zone. We see it mostly in the zone of the Holy Lands. They are things, but they got different versions of them in the zones of Africa, which would be the Ghanans kings. It's the same people. Okay, so they became Carthaginians and stuff like that. So okay, so if Alarache, Alkila, Mamora, Saleh, and Masakan had been on the Atlantic coast of Morocco, where they are today, the trip to the first would have not been 25 days, nor were deck boats necessary, nor were deck boats necessary. Neither would tartanas, and caravellons would have been sought to bring relief to the squares. So it means smaller boats and stuff like that on bigger boats because they know they gotta go through certain riverways, and these rivers got certain boats you need to get through. They call them merchant ladders and stuff. So the merchants and the people who've been dealing with this trade that know about these things. So this is evidence that scholars must, when they translate these whole things, because they're experts in why who would need these boats. So she bringing that to our attention. So they would have been sought to relieve these squares, which that's all he's been, since any ship would have served. Nor would it have been said that sending them in winter would have implied sending them to get lost. There would be no news of roads with unlimited capacity. So she got records of them really dealing with that part of the world, North Africa, and they don't show up the same way, but they got the same words using terms like Morocco, MataMoros, Saleh, but the boat's different and the wordage different. And the time that they're speaking, like the foods, they can bring a certain amount of supplies for a certain amount of time, and record that, and it'll be times that it's fishy if they've been going just across the straits. So we're dealing with sister cities and sister jurisdictions and shit. Alright, so there would be no news of the roads with unlimited capacity, such as MataMoros, nor specialized pilots on the river bars. So these more terms and stuff that we can look into, for the simple reason that there were neither nor they are in northern Africa, not even at the mouth of the rivers, which separate Saleh from Rabat. Small ships enter the mouth, which even in winter cannot go up the river. So the geography on both sides is different enough to the point where we can make a denomination of which Morocco being talked about in these papers, based off just some clues. And basically in her interview she said if her book is a lot of finding out these truths from looking at these documents, then she said only 1%, she only get through 1% after all that research of what possibly in there. That's why she's been trying to set up committees with Moors from here, Morocco, and in Spain today to go through a lot of this stuff and, put our heads together, whatever, but, she passed before that could have been done. But she leave a lot. So we're going through 1492, San Angelo and Francisco Pinelo chartered ships to take the expelled Jews from Seville to Lisbon, where they from the spring. There were no shortage of Barbary passage, so they